After my coma, I woke up paralyzed but conscious. I couldn't move or speak to reveal I was aware until I heard the doctors discussing pulling my plug. The first voice I heard after 3 weeks of darkness belonged to Dr. Richard Kensington, and he was talking about killing me. Not in those words exactly, but that's what it meant when he said, "We should consider withdrawing life support within the next 72 hours. The EEG shows minimal activity, and frankly, even if he did wake up, the quality of life would be non-existent." I tried to scream, tried to move my hand, blink my eyes, anything to show them I was here, trapped inside this body that had become a prison. Nothing happened. Not a twitch, not a flutter, nothing. My body was a tomb, and I was buried alive inside it. "His wife agrees," said another voice, female, younger. "Doctor. Nina Castellano," I would learn later. "She's been very clear that David wouldn't want to live like this. She has medical power of attorney, and she's ready to sign the forms." That stopped my internal screaming cold. My wife, Melissa, the woman I'd been married to for 8 years, the woman who'd held my hand at our wedding and promised to love me in sickness and in health. She was ready to pull my plug after 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The car accident happened on a Saturday morning in late September. I remembered that much. Melissa and I were driving to her sister's house in Tacoma for a birthday party. Melissa's sister, Rebecca, was turning 35, and we'd promised to help set up. I was driving our Subaru Outback, the one we'd bought together 2 years earlier when we'd started talking about having kids. We never made it to Tacoma. I remembered the intersection. I remembered the light turning green. I remembered pressing the accelerator and entering the intersection. What I didn't remember was the pickup truck that ran the red light going 60 miles an hour and T-boned us on the driver's side. According to the police report I would eventually read, the impact was catastrophic. The truck hit us with enough force to spin our car completely around and send it into a telephone pole. I sustained a traumatic brain injury, multiple broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and spinal trauma. Melissa walked away with a concussion and a broken wrist. The universe has a sick sense of humor sometimes. The paramedics said I died twice on the way to Harborview Medical Center. They brought me back both times. I wish I could thank them for that, but I also wish I could ask them why they bothered if this was the result. 3 weeks in a coma, followed by waking up to a body that wouldn't obey a single command from my brain. The medical term is locked-in syndrome. I didn't know that yet, lying in that hospital bed listening to doctors discuss my execution. I just knew I was awake, aware, and completely unable to communicate that fact to anyone. Dr. Kensington continued talking. "I've reviewed the imaging. The damage to the brainstem is extensive. Even in the unlikely event of some recovery, we're looking at permanent paralysis, likely inability to breathe without a ventilator, feeding tubes indefinitely. This isn't a life, it's existence." I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to explain that I was here, that I could hear every word, that I was still David Thornton, still the man who'd graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in mechanical engineering, still the guy who'd proposed to Melissa on a beach in Maui, still a person who deserved to live. But my body wouldn't cooperate. My vocal cords were silent. My limbs were dead weight. Even my eyelids wouldn't respond when I screamed at them to open. "When should we schedule it?" Dr. Castellano asked. Her voice was clinical, detached. She could have been discussing lunch plans. "I'd like to give it until Monday. That gives the family time to say goodbye, and it's respectful to allow for any religious or personal considerations." Monday. It was Friday afternoon. Judging by the light I could sense through my closed eyelids and the fact that Dr. Kensington had mentioned something about the weekend schedule. They were giving me 72 hours to somehow prove I was alive, or they were going to kill me. The panic that flooded through me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was primal, suffocating, absolute. I was going to die, not because my body couldn't survive, but because no one knew I was still in here. I tried everything. I focused every ounce of mental energy on moving my right index finger, just one tiny movement to press the call button I could sense near my hand. Nothing. I tried opening my eyes, blinking. Anything. My eyelids stayed shut like they'd been welded closed. I tried making a sound, even just a groan or a gasp. My throat was silent, except for the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator breathing for me. "I'll prepare the paperwork," Dr. Kensington said, "and I'll schedule a meeting with Mrs. Thornton for tomorrow morning to review the process. Has she requested to be present when we withdraw support?" There was a pause, papers rustling. "Yes," Dr. Castellano confirmed. "She wants to be there. She said she wants to hold his hand when he goes." I would have vomited if I could have. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was planning to hold my hand while they killed me. And she had no idea I would be conscious for every second of it. They left after that, their footsteps fading down the hallway, and I was alone with the machines that were keeping me alive and the knowledge that in 3 days, those machines would be turned off. The rest of Friday passed in a blur of panicked attempts to move, to signal, to do anything. Nurses came and went, adjusting my IV, checking my vitals, repositioning my body. I focused on each one, trying desperately to somehow communicate. When a nurse named Patricia turned my head to prevent bed sores, I tried to resist, to make my neck muscles tense. Nothing happened. When another nurse, a young guy named Luis, adjusted my blankets, I tried to grab his hand. My fingers didn't even twitch. The worst part was the silence. Not external silence. The hospital was full of sounds, beeping monitors, distant conversations, the hum of machines, but the silence of my own voice. I'd always been someone who talked through problems. When Melissa and I fought, I talked it out. When work was stressful, I talked to my colleagues. When my dad died of a heart attack 3 years ago, I talked to my therapist, Dr. Helen Pritchard, twice a week for 6 months. Now, when I needed my voice more than ever, it was gone. Saturday morning brought Melissa. I heard her heels clicking on the tile floor before I heard her voice. She was wearing the black pumps I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. I knew the sound of those shoes. "Hi, baby," she said softly, and I felt her hand close around mine. Her skin was warm, alive. Everything mine wasn't. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm so sorry." She sounded genuine. That was what killed me. She sounded like she actually believed she was doing the right thing. "The doctors say you're not going to wake up," she continued. Her thumb rubbed circles on the back of my hand, a gesture that used to comfort me. Now it felt like a countdown timer. "They say even if you did, you'd be paralyzed, on machines forever. You always told me you wouldn't want that. Remember when we watched your dad in the hospital, how you said you'd never want to be kept alive by tubes and machines?" I did remember that. I remembered sitting in the ICU watching my father die slowly. His body kept functioning by technology, while his mind slipped away from Alzheimer's. I remembered telling Melissa I'd rather die than live like that. But this was different. My mind wasn't gone. I was here, aware, desperate to live if only I could prove it. "I'm going to let you go," Melissa whispered. "On Monday, the doctors are going to turn off the machines. You won't feel anything. You'll just slip away peacefully. I'll be right here with you. I promise." She leaned down, and I felt her lips brush my forehead. "I love you, David. I'll always love you." Then she straightened up, and I heard something that made my blood run cold. She sniffled, yes, but there was something else. A phone buzzing. "I have to take this," she said, and her hand left mine. She walked a few steps away, her heels clicking, then answered. "Hey. Yeah, I'm at the hospital now. I just told him." Her voice changed. The soft, grieving tone vanished, replaced by something harder, more businesslike. "Monday afternoon. Dr. Kensington scheduled it for 2 p.m. The insurance payout should process within 30 days after the death certificate. $350,000 from his life insurance, plus another $120,000 from the accidental death policy through his work." My heart, the one part of my body still functioning normally, started racing. The monitor beside my bed began beeping faster. "No, he can't hear anything," Melissa said. "He's completely unresponsive. Brain dead, basically." She paused. "Of course, I'm sure. Do you think I'd do this if there was any chance he could wake up?" Another pause, longer this time. "We can start looking at houses next month. I'm thinking somewhere in Queen Anne, close to downtown. With the insurance money and selling our place in Ballard, we should have enough for a decent down payment." She said we. Melissa wasn't alone in this. She was planning a future with someone else, and that future required me to be dead. "I love you too," she said softly. "I'll call you after it's done. We can celebrate Monday night." She hung up and came back to my bedside. "I have to go, baby," she said, her voice back to that syrupy, grief-stricken tone. "I'll be back tomorrow. Just rest." She kissed my forehead again and left. The moment she was gone, I started screaming inside my head. Screaming her name, screaming for help, screaming at God or the universe or anyone who might be listening. None of it made a sound. Saturday afternoon, I had a visitor I didn't expect. My brother, Nathan. We hadn't spoken much since our fight about Dad's will, a stupid dispute over some family heirlooms that seemed absurd now. "Hey, man," Nathan said, pulling a chair up beside my bed. "Melissa called me, told me what's happening Monday." His voice was thick with emotion. "I can't believe this is how it ends. We were supposed to grow old and annoying together, arguing about football and politics and whose kids were smarter." He laughed, but it was hollow. "I'm sorry about the fight. About Dad's stuff. It was stupid. I should have just let it go." He was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him breathing, uneven, like he was trying not to cry. "Melissa says you wouldn't want to live like this. She's probably right. You always were the one who wanted control over everything, your career, your projects, your whole life. I can't imagine you'd want to be trapped in a body that doesn't work. But I am trapped," I wanted to scream. "And I'm begging you to notice, to see somehow that I'm still here." "I'm going to miss you," Nathan said. "I already do." He stayed for an hour, talking about memories from our childhood, the time we'd built a treehouse and I'd fallen and broken my arm, the time we'd driven cross-country the summer after college and gotten stranded in Montana when our car broke down. He talked about his kids, my niece and nephew, how they were doing in school. It was torture. Every word reminded me of what I was about to lose. When he left, I was alone again with my panic and the machines and the knowledge that I had less than 48 hours to somehow prove I was alive. That night, I had a breakthrough. A nurse came in around 9 p.m. to check my vitals. I didn't recognize her voice. She was humming something, a song I didn't know, while she adjusted my IV. Then she did something the other nurses hadn't done. She talked to me. "I know you probably can't hear me," she said, "but I always think it's worth talking to patients anyway. You never know, right?" Her name tag said, Catherine Solis, RN. I would later learn she'd been a nurse for 19 years and had a reputation for treating comatose patients like they were fully aware. "You've got a lot of people who love you," Catherine continued. "Your wife was here earlier. She seems really torn up about all this." If only you knew, I thought bitterly. "I'm going to clean you up a bit, okay?" She started wiping down my face with a warm cloth, and when she got to my eyes, she gently cleaned around my eyelids. "You've got some crusty stuff here. Let me just get this off." She wiped carefully, and then something happened. For just a second, maybe less, my right eyelid twitched. It was involuntary, a response to the stimulation around my eye, but it was movement. Catherine gasped. "Did you just move?" She leaned in close. "David, can you hear me? If you can hear me, try to move your eyes." I focused everything I had on that right eyelid. Move. Please, God, move. Nothing. It might have been a reflex, Catherine muttered to herself, but it seemed responsive. She pulled back and wrote something on my chart. "I'm going to note this, just in case." Just in case. Those 3 words were a lifeline. Someone had noticed something, even if it was tiny, even if it might have been nothing. Catherine left, and I spent the rest of the night trying to recreate that twitch. I focused on my right eyelid until my head ached from the mental effort. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The hospital quieted down to just the essential night staff and the endless beeping of monitors. Around 3 a.m., I felt it again. A tiny flutter in my right eyelid, barely anything, but it was there. I'd moved. It wasn't much, but it was proof that somewhere in the wreckage of my nervous system, there was still a connection between my brain and my body. I just had to figure out how to strengthen it before Monday afternoon. Sunday morning brought Dr. Kensington back. He was with someone new, a woman with an authoritative voice who introduced herself as Dr. Leslie Vaughn, hospital ethicist. "I'm here to review the case," Dr. Vaughn said. "We want to make sure we're following proper protocol for withdrawal of life support. Dr. Kensington, walk me through the patient's condition." Kensington launched into medical jargon, most of which went over my head. Brainstem herniation, Glasgow coma scale score of 3, absent cranial nerve reflexes, persistent vegetative state. He made me sound like a corpse already. "And the family is in agreement?" "Doctor," Vaughn asked. "Mrs. Thornton has medical power of attorney and has consented to withdrawal of support. The patient's brother was notified and hasn't objected." "What about the nurse's note from last night?" Dr. Vaughn asked. Catherine Solis reported what she thought might be responsive eye movement. My heart surged. Catherine had reported it. Someone had noticed. "I reviewed that," Dr. Kensington said dismissively. "It was almost certainly a reflex response to tactile stimulation around the eyes. There's no indication of consciousness or purposeful movement. I've seen similar reflexes in confirmed brain-dead patients." "No," I wanted to scream. "It wasn't a reflex. It was me. I'm here." "Still," Dr. Vaughn said carefully, "given that there was some documented movement, I'd recommend we extend the timeline by a few days, just to be thorough." Thank God. Thank God for Dr. Vaughn and her caution. "I disagree, Doctor," Kensington said firmly. "We've already established that meaningful recovery is impossible. Delaying just prolongs the family's suffering. Mrs. Thornton has been very clear that she wants this done as soon as possible." Of course she does, I thought bitterly. She's got house hunting to do. "I understand," Dr. Vaughn said. "But from an ethics standpoint, if there's any question about the patient's neurological status, we should err on the side of caution. I'm recommending we postpone the withdrawal until we can do additional testing." "What kind of testing?" Dr. Kensington sounded annoyed. "I'd like to bring in Dr. Michael Patterson for a neurology consult. He specializes in disorders of consciousness. If he confirms there's no awareness, we can proceed. But I want a second opinion, especially given the nurse's observation." There was a long silence. I could practically feel Dr. Kensington's frustration. "Fine," he said finally. "But I want it on record that I believe this is unnecessary and potentially cruel to the family." They left, and I felt a tiny spark of hope. I had more time. Not much, but maybe enough. Dr. Michael Patterson arrived Sunday afternoon. I'd never met him, but I would come to think of him as the man who saved my life. He was in his early 50s, with a calm, methodical demeanor that came through in his voice. "Mr. Thornton," he said, even though he knew I supposedly couldn't hear him. "I'm Dr. Patterson. I'm going to run some tests to see if there's any awareness present. Some of these might be uncomfortable, but I need to be thorough." He started with basic stimuli. Painful pressure on my nail beds, which I felt but couldn't react to. Loud noises near my ears. Bright lights shined through my eyelids. With each test, I tried desperately to respond, but my body remained stubbornly unresponsive. Then he did something different. "I'm going to ask you some questions," Dr. Patterson said. If you can hear me and understand me, I want you to try to move your eyes. Specifically, I want you to try to open your eyes. Can you do that for me, David? I focused everything on my eyelids. Open. Open. Please, God, let them open. I felt that flutter again in my right eye, that tiny twitch that might have been nothing, or might have been everything. Interesting, Dr. Patterson murmured. Let's try something else. David, if you can hear me, I want you to try to open your eyes when I count to 3. Don't try before then, just wait for 3. 1, 2, 3. I waited, counting with him, then pushed every ounce of will I had into opening my eyes. My right eyelid moved. Not much, maybe a millimeter, but it moved. There it is, Dr. Patterson said quietly. Let's try again. David, close your eyes, wait for my count, then try to open them on 3. 1, 2, 3. I did it again. The same tiny movement, but timed to his instruction. That's purposeful movement, Dr. Patterson said. Catherine, can you come here? The nurse must have been in the room. I heard footsteps approaching. Watch his right eye, Mr. Thornton, on 3. 1, 2, 3. I repeated the movement. Oh my God, Catherine breathed. He's responding. He can hear us. Get Dr. Kensington, Patterson said. And Page Neurology. We need to run a full awareness protocol immediately. The next few hours were a whirlwind. More doctors came, more tests. They discovered that while I couldn't move most of my body, I had minimal movement in my right eyelid and possibly some eye movement behind my closed lids. It was enough. Using a system of blinks, 1 for yes, 2 for no, they confirmed I was fully conscious and aware. This changes everything, Dr. Patterson told someone, probably Dr. Kensington. This patient has locked-in syndrome, not persistent vegetative state. He's aware, he's conscious, and he can communicate. Withdrawal of life support is absolutely off the table. I wanted to cry with relief, but even my tear ducts weren't cooperating. I was going to live. They wouldn't kill me now. But then I heard Dr. Kensington's voice, tight with something that might have been embarrassment or might have been anger. I need to contact Mrs. Thornton immediately. She needs to know her husband is conscious. No. No, no, no. Melissa couldn't know. Not yet. Not before I figured out what to do about what I'd heard. But I had no way to tell them to wait. Dr. Kensington called Melissa from my room. I could hear both sides of the conversation because he put her on speaker, probably for documentation purposes. Mrs. Thornton, this is Dr. Kensington. I'm calling with an update on your husband's condition. There was a pause. When Melissa spoke, her voice was tight, controlled. Is he gone already? Did something happen? No, Dr. Kensington said. Actually, we've discovered that David is conscious. He has what's called locked-in syndrome. He's aware and can communicate through eye movements. The silence on the other end lasted so long, I thought the call had dropped. I'm sorry, what? Melissa finally said. Your husband is awake and aware. He's been conscious, possibly for several days. We're running tests now to determine the extent of his awareness and what communication systems we can establish. But you said he was brain dead. Melissa's voice was rising. You said there was no chance of recovery. I said we believed he was in a persistent vegetative state, Dr. Kensington corrected. New evidence has come to light that changes that diagnosis. I understand this is a shock, but it's actually very good news. I need to see him. Melissa's voice had gone flat, emotionless. I'm coming there now. She hung up. Dr. Kensington left to handle paperwork, and I was alone with Catherine. You must be so relieved, she said gently. Your wife sounded shocked, but she'll be happy once it sinks in. You're going to be okay. I wanted to tell her I wasn't okay, that I was terrified, that my wife was coming here right now, and I had no idea what she was going to do when she realized I could hear everything. Melissa arrived 30 minutes later. I heard her heels clicking on the tile floor, faster than usual, almost running. David, she said breathlessly, leaning over me. Oh my God, they said you're awake. Can you hear me? I blinked once. Yes. Oh my God, she repeated. She sounded convincing. Perfect mixture of shock and joy and relief. If I hadn't heard that phone conversation yesterday, I would have believed her completely. Baby, I'm so glad you're okay. I was so scared. I thought I'd lost you. She was stroking my face, her fingers gentle. They're saying you might be paralyzed, but that doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. We'll get through this together. I promise. She was good. Really good. But I knew the truth. I knew about the insurance money and the house in Queen Anne and the we that didn't include me. The question was, what was I going to do about it? Over the next 3 days, they ran extensive tests to determine the scope of my locked-in syndrome. The results were grim. I was completely paralyzed, except for minimal movement in my right eyelid and some ability to move my eyes vertically. I was on a ventilator indefinitely. I'd need around-the-clock care for basic functions. But my mind was intact. That was the miracle and the curse. Dr. Patterson became my primary neurologist. He was patient, methodical, and treated me like a person rather than a problem to solve. We're going to get you set up with communication technology, he explained. Eye tracking software that will let you select letters and form words. It's slow, but it works. You'll be able to talk to people again. Melissa visited every day. She played the devoted wife perfectly. She held my hand, talked about our future, discussed options for home care versus long-term facilities. She never once slipped up, never gave any indication that she'd been ready to end my life. But I knew, and I needed to figure out how to expose her without getting myself killed in the process. The communication technology arrived on Thursday. It was a screen mounted on an adjustable arm that could be positioned in front of my eyes. By looking at different letters, I could spell out words. It was painfully slow, each word taking minutes to form, but it was a voice. My first full sentence took me 15 minutes to complete. I directed it at Dr. Patterson, who was helping me test the system. Can I speak to lawyer privately? He raised his eyebrows. You want to speak to a lawyer? About what? I spelled out my next sentence even more carefully. Personal legal matter. Confidential. Please. Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. Of course, that's your right. I can have the hospital's legal department send someone, or if you have a personal attorney, I can contact them. I spelled out, need criminal defense attorney, not hospital lawyer. Now, Dr. Patterson looked seriously concerned. David, is something wrong? Are you in some kind of trouble or danger? I blinked once. Yes. Do you want me to contact the police? I thought about it. Not yet. I needed to understand my legal position first, needed to know what evidence I had and what I could prove. I blinked twice. No. Okay, Doctor, Patterson said carefully. I'll find you a criminal defense attorney. But David, if you're in danger, you need to tell me. I can protect you. I spelled out, later, lawyer first, promise you won't tell anyone. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I promise. I'll make some calls. Dr. Patterson was true to his word. The next day, Friday afternoon, a lawyer named Gregory Ashton arrived. He was in his early 60s, with silver hair and the sharp eyes of someone who'd spent 40 years reading people for lies. Dr. Patterson introduced us, then left us alone, closing the door behind him. Mr. Thornton, Ashton said, settling into a chair where I could see him clearly. Dr. Patterson said you needed to speak with a criminal defense attorney urgently and confidentially. Before we begin, I want to establish attorney-client privilege. Anything you tell me is completely confidential. I can't share it with anyone without your permission. Do you understand? I blinked once. Good. Now what's this about? Using the eye tracking system, painfully slowly, I began to tell him everything. About waking up paralyzed. About overhearing Dr. Kensington and Dr. Castellano discussing withdrawal of life support. About Melissa's visit and the phone call afterward, discussing insurance money and buying a house with someone else. About her saying she loved someone and they could celebrate after I was dead. It took me almost 2 hours to spell it all out. Ashton listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as the story unfolded. When I finished, he sat back and let out a long breath. Mr. Thornton, if what you're telling me is accurate, your wife may have been planning to commit murder, or at minimum, manslaughter through medical fraud. I blinked once. Yes. The problem is, we have no proof. It's your word against hers, and your word is coming through an eye tracking system that a defense attorney would argue could be influenced or manipulated. I'd thought about this. I spelled out, she'll visit today. Bug the room. Record her. Ashton shook his head. Washington is a two-party consent state for recordings. Anything we recorded without her knowledge would be inadmissible in court and could actually get us in legal trouble. I felt panic rising. I spelled out, then what? We need her to confess to something on record with witnesses, Ashton said, or we need to catch her in an act that proves her intent. I need to think about this. He stood up, paced the room. Does anyone else know about what you heard? I blinked twice. No. Good. Keep it that way for now. I need to consult with some colleagues, maybe a prosecutor I know. This is complicated because you're vulnerable. If we tip our hand too early and she realizes, she could find other ways to hurt you. That thought had been keeping me awake at night. I was completely dependent on whoever took care of me. If Melissa wanted me dead, she had 1,000 ways to make it happen that would look like accidents or complications. I'm going to come back Monday, Ashton said. Don't try to communicate about this with anyone else. Just act normal, as much as you can. We'll figure this out. He left, and I was alone with my fear. Melissa visited that evening. She was wearing the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas last year, the expensive one from France. Hey, baby, she said, kissing my forehead. How are you feeling today? Using the eye tracking system, I spelled out, okay, tired. The doctor said you were talking to a lawyer today. Is everything all right? Her tone was casual, but I could hear the tension underneath. Just updating, Will, I spelled. Make sure you're taken care of. I watched her face carefully. Relief flickered across it, gone in an instant, but I saw it. That's sweet, she said. But let's not talk about Wills. You're going to be fine. We're going to get through this together. I love you, I spelled out, each letter feeling like betrayal. "I love you too," she said. She stayed for an hour, talking about meaningless things, then left. The moment she was gone, I started crying. Actual tears running down my face. It was the first time my body had cooperated with my emotions since I'd woken up. Over the weekend, I practiced with the eye tracking system, getting faster, more efficient. I could now spell out sentences in a few minutes instead of 15. I also thought constantly about my situation, trying to find a way out. Monday morning, Gregory Ashton returned. This time, he brought someone with him. "Mr. Thornton, this is Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Knowles. She prosecutes fraud and elder abuse cases. I've briefed her on your situation, and she's agreed to consult with us, off the record for now." Ada Knowles was in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back severely and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who dealt with horrible people daily. "Mr. Thornton," she said, "I want to help you, but I need you to understand something. What you've described is extremely serious, but it's also extremely difficult to prosecute without concrete evidence. In Washington state, we'd be looking at attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder, but we'd need to prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt." I blinked once. I understood. "The challenge is that your wife can claim she genuinely believed you were unconscious, and that withdrawing life support was what you would have wanted," Knowles continued. "The phone call you overheard about insurance money is suspicious, but it's not necessarily criminal. Spouses discuss finances and future plans. Without proof that she knew you were conscious and was trying to kill you anyway, we don't have a case." I spelled out, "What if she tries again?" "That's what I'm worried about," Knowles said. "You're extremely vulnerable right now. If she has intent to harm you, she has opportunity and means, which is why we need to be very strategic about how we handle this." Ashton leaned forward. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it. We need to give her an opportunity to reveal her intentions, in a controlled setting where we can document everything." I spelled out, "How?" "We tell her you're getting worse," Ashton said. "That you're declining, maybe developing an infection or pneumonia. We create a scenario where withdrawal of life support becomes an option again, and we see how she reacts." It was dangerous. If Melissa really did want me dead, we'd be giving her exactly what she wanted. But I couldn't see another option. I blinked once. "Yes." Knowles nodded. "I can get authorization for surveillance, audio and video recording of your hospital room. It's legal with your consent since you're the patient. We'll document everything she says and does." Over the next 2 days, Dr. Patterson, who'd been brought into the plan reluctantly, began telling Melissa that I was developing complications. "Pneumonia," he said. My lungs were struggling. The ventilator settings had to be increased. Melissa's responses were perfect. Concerned, worried, asking all the right questions about treatment options and prognosis. On Wednesday evening, Dr. Patterson delivered the crucial message. "Mrs. Thornton, I need to be honest with you. David's condition is deteriorating. The pneumonia is getting worse, and his body isn't responding to antibiotics. We're at a point where we need to discuss whether aggressive intervention is in his best interest." I watched Melissa's face through half-closed eyes. The surveillance camera hidden in the ceiling vent was recording everything. "What do you mean?" she asked. "We have options, Doctor," Patterson said. "We can try more aggressive antibiotics, possibly a surgical intervention. But given his locked-in syndrome and quality-of-life issues, some families choose to focus on comfort care instead of aggressive treatment. You still have medical power of attorney, so the decision is ultimately yours." Melissa was quiet for a long moment. "What would comfort care mean?" "We'd make him comfortable, manage his pain, but we wouldn't pursue aggressive interventions. If his condition continued to decline, we'd allow natural death to occur." Dr. Patterson's voice was carefully neutral. "How long would that take?" Melissa asked. "It's hard to say. Days, maybe a week. And he wouldn't suffer?" "We'd make sure he was comfortable. He wouldn't be in pain." Melissa stood up and walked to the window. The camera would have a perfect view of her face in profile. "This is so hard," she said. "When we thought he was unconscious, it seemed more clear-cut. But now, knowing he can hear us, knowing he's aware..." She trailed off. "I understand it's an incredibly difficult decision," Dr. Patterson said. "You don't have to decide right now. Take some time to think about it." Melissa turned back to face him. "Can I ask you something? Honestly?" "Of course. If this was your husband or wife, lying there unable to move, unable to live any kind of normal life, completely dependent on machines and other people for everything, would you want them to keep fighting? Or would you let them go?" Dr. Patterson was quiet for a moment. "I think that's a question only you can answer, based on what you believe David would want." "He always said he'd rather be dead than helpless," Melissa said softly. "After watching his father die, he made me promise I'd never let him live like that." She walked back to my bedside and took my hand. "Baby, I don't know if you can understand this, but I'm trying to do what's right for you, what you would want." She was crying now, real tears streaming down her face. If I didn't know better, I would have believed every word. Dr. Patterson left us alone. Melissa sat beside me for a long time, holding my hand, crying quietly. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it, and her whole demeanor changed. She wiped her tears, looked around to make sure no one was watching, then answered. Hey, yeah, I'm still at the hospital. Her voice was different now. Harder. He's getting worse. The doctor says he's got pneumonia. They're asking me about end-of-life decisions. Pause. I don't know. It's complicated now that he's conscious. I can't just pull the plug like we planned. Longer pause. I know we need the insurance money, I know. But if I push too hard for them to stop treatment, it's going to look suspicious. She was quiet, listening. Comfort care. They call it comfort care. Basically, they stop fighting the infections and let nature take its course. It would look natural. Nobody would question it. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure the monitors would give me away. I'll tell them tomorrow. Say it's what David would want, that I can't stand watching him suffer. It should work. She listened again. I love you too. This will be over soon, I promise. Then we can start our life together. She hung up, and immediately her face shifted back to grief. She leaned down and kissed my forehead. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry it has to be this way. She left. The moment the door closed, I started crying again. In the surveillance room down the hall, ADA Rebecca Knowles and Detective James Whitmore from the Fraud Division were watching the monitors. I didn't know it then, but Knowles would later tell me she'd had to leave the room for a moment because watching Melissa's performance made her physically ill. Thursday morning, Dr. Patterson came in early. We've got her, he said quietly. The recording is clear. Her intent is documented. A DA Knowles is getting an arrest warrant. I spelled out, when? Today. Detective Whitmore wants to be here when she visits. Catch her in the act. Are you okay with that? I blinked once. Yes. I'd been waiting for this moment since I'd first heard her voice discussing my death. Melissa arrived at 2 p.m. She was dressed nicely, wearing the blue dress I'd always said made her eyes look beautiful. She'd done her hair, put on makeup. She looked like someone coming to say goodbye to a loved one. Dr. Patterson was in the room with me. Mrs. Thornton, he said, have you had time to think about what we discussed? I have, Melissa said. She sat down beside me and took my hand. David, baby, I need you to know this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but I can't watch you suffer anymore. She turned to Dr. Patterson. I want you to stop aggressive treatment. Focus on keeping him comfortable, but let him go peacefully. It's what he would want. Are you certain? Dr. Patterson asked. This decision is irreversible. I'm certain, Melissa said. I love my husband. I'm doing this because I love him. That's when Detective Whitmore walked in. He was in his early 50s, built like he still lifted weights every day, with the kind of presence that filled a room. Mrs. Thornton, he said. Melissa turned, startled. Yes? I'm Detective James Whitmore with Seattle PD. I need you to come with me. What? Why? What's going on? Whitmore pulled out handcuffs. Melissa Thornton, you're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The color drained from Melissa's face. This is insane. I didn't do anything. I'm trying to help my husband. We have you on tape, ma'am, Whitmore said. Multiple recordings of you discussing your husband's insurance payout and your plans to end his life. You have the right to an attorney. Melissa looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the moment she understood. I'd heard everything. I'd been aware the whole time. I'd played her just like she'd played me. You son of a bitch, she hissed. You've been awake this whole time. You heard everything. I blinked once. Yes. She lunged at me, actually tried to attack me while I lay paralyzed in the bed. Detective Whitmore grabbed her, pulled her back, snapped the handcuffs on. You were supposed to die, she screamed. You were supposed to be brain dead. This was supposed to be over. Ma'am, stop talking, Whitmore said. Seriously, stop talking right now. But Melissa was beyond rational thought. You ruined everything. I spent 8 years married to you, 8 years waiting for the right opportunity, and you couldn't even die properly? Whitmore looked at me, then at Dr. Patterson. Is this being recorded? Dr. Patterson nodded. Every word. They dragged Melissa out, still screaming. I could hear her voice echoing down the hallway, calling me names, cursing me. Ada Knowles came in a few minutes later. Mr. Thornton, we have everything we need. Her confession just now sealed it. She's going away for a very long time. I spelled out, who was on the phone? The other person? Knowles grimaced. We're still working on that. Phone records show the calls were to a number registered to a Nathan Thornton. Do you know that name? My brother. My own brother. I blinked once, and Knowles saw something in my expression. I'm sorry, she said. I know this must be devastating. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of the conspiracy came out. Melissa and Nathan had been having an affair for 2 years. They'd planned the murder even before the accident. When the accident happened and I ended up in a coma, they saw it as a gift, an opportunity to end my life legally through withdrawal of life support. The insurance payout was substantial, $500,000 from my life insurance plus the accidental death policy through my work. They'd planned to wait a respectful 6 months after my death. then get married and buy a house together with my money. Nathan was arrested 3 days after Melissa. He tried to claim he didn't know she was serious, that he thought they were just venting, fantasy talk. But his phone records showed he'd helped research guardianship laws and life insurance payout timelines. Both of them were charged with conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. The trial was 6 months later. I testified through my eye tracking system, which the judge allowed as accommodation under the ADA. It was surreal, spelling out the story of how my wife and brother had tried to kill me while they sat at the defense table, trying not to look at me. Melissa's attorney tried to argue that she genuinely believed withdrawal of life support was what I would have wanted, that her phone calls were just her way of coping with grief by planning for a future. The jury didn't buy it. The recordings were too damning, her shift between grieving wife and cold planner too obvious. They deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Nathan's trial was separate, and his attorney tried to paint him as a man who'd been manipulated by my wife. That fell apart when they played the recording of him advising Melissa on how to make the death look natural. Guilty. Melissa got 25 years. Nathan got 18. I'll be 56 when Melissa gets out, if she serves her full sentence. Nathan will be 51. I'll still be paralyzed, still be locked in this body that stopped working the day a truck ran a red light. The physical therapy has helped marginally. I've regained tiny movements in one finger, enough to use a modified computer mouse. I can breathe on my own for short periods now, though I still need the ventilator most of the time. I communicate through a sophisticated eye tracking system that's gotten faster as I've practiced. I can have conversations, write emails, even work remotely as a consultant for my old engineering firm. It's not the life I had. It's not the life I wanted, but it's life, and I fought to keep it. A year after the trial, I moved into a specialized care facility that works with locked-in syndrome patients. The staff here treats me like a person, not a problem. I have a room with windows overlooking Puget Sound. I have friends, other patients and staff who talk to me, include me, see me as human despite my body's limitations. My parents visit weekly. They're devastated about Nathan, destroyed by what their son did. My mother cries every time she sees me, apologizing like she's somehow responsible for her son's choices. I tell her through my computer that I don't blame her. I'm not sure she believes me. Dr. Patterson still checks on me monthly, even though I'm not his patient anymore. He says I'm his reminder of why he became a doctor, to notice what others miss, to fight for patients who can't fight for themselves. Catherine Solis, the nurse who first noticed my eye movement, transferred to this facility specifically to work with me. She says I'm her favorite patient, though she says that to everyone. I'm writing this on a specialized computer system that tracks my eye movements and converts them to text. It's taken me 3 months to write it all out, working a few hours each day when I'm not too tired. People ask me sometimes if I regret surviving, if I wish I'd just died in the accident or in the hospital before all of this happened. The answer is complicated. I miss my body. I miss being able to walk and talk and hug people and eat food and feel the sun on my skin without being wheeled outside by someone else. I miss independence and privacy and the thousand small things that make up a normal life. But I'm alive. I'm aware. I can think and feel and communicate. I have relationships with people who value me. I'm working on a book about locked-in syndrome, advocacy for patients with severe disabilities. I'm consulting on a lawsuit to improve hospital protocols for awareness testing in comatose patients. I'm still here, still fighting, still proving that I'm more than a body that doesn't work. Melissa thought she could kill me and get away with it. Nathan thought he could betray me and cash in on my death. They forgot one critical thing. I'm stubborn as hell, and I don't give up. They gave me 72 hours to prove I was alive. I only needed one blink. 2 weeks ago, I got a letter from Melissa. It was forwarded through her lawyer to me, unopened by everyone in between. I had my care assistant read it to me. It was 3 pages of apologies. She claimed she'd been having a breakdown, that the stress of the accident and watching me in a coma had broken something in her. She said she'd made terrible choices but that she'd never stopped loving me. She asked for my forgiveness. I dictated a response through my eye tracking system. My lawyer typed it up and sent it back through official channels. It was 2 words. No. Goodbye. I haven't heard from Nathan. I don't expect to. Whatever we were as brothers died in that hospital room when I heard his voice on Melissa's phone, planning my death like it was a business transaction. Sometimes late at night, when the facility is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts and the machines that keep me alive, I think about that moment when I first heard Dr. Kensington's voice discussing pulling my plug. I think about the terror of being trapped, aware but unable to scream, knowing I was about to die and having no way to stop it. And then I think about the moment Catherine noticed my eye movement, that tiny flutter that saved my life. I think about Dr. Patterson's patience and doctor. Vaughn's caution and Gregory Ashton's strategy and ADA Knoll's determination to get justice. I think about all the people who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, and I realize something important. Melissa and Nathan thought they could take everything from me, my life, my money, my future. They almost succeeded. But they couldn't take away the fact that when it mattered most, when I had nothing but the tiniest ability to move one eyelid, I found a way to survive. They couldn't take my will to live. They couldn't take my mind. They couldn't take my humanity. And in the end, that was enough. I'm David Thornton. I survived a car crash, a coma, locked-in syndrome, and a murder conspiracy. I'm paralyzed, dependent on machines and caregivers, trapped in a body that barely works. And I'm still here, still fighting, still alive. That's my victory. That's my revenge. That's my life. If you made it this far, hit like, you've earned it.